We are live. Hello world. My name is John French. I'm the Director of Marketing and Events at the Next 36. I would like to welcome you to our application webinar for the 2015 cohort and thank everyone for tuning in. I'm joined today by 4 of our newest alumni who just went through the program, and very shortly you'll have an opportunity to meet Tagg, Jaclyn, Chenny, and Samir. But first, I want to take care of a few housekeeping items. First off, I want to thank the Digital Media Zone here at Ryerson for hosting today's event. We will be answering your questions over the next 45 minutes to an hour. Thank you for those who have sent them either through our email address or through Twitter in advance. We will be taking them throughout the webinar. Our handle is at Next36. And our hashtag that you should also include is hashtag N36apply. We are recording this, so if you can't stay for the entire webinar or you want to go back and hear some of the responses from our alumni, you will be able to come back and check that out. I want to remind you to keep your microphones on mute so that everyone can hear what our panelists are saying. And also highlight a couple of key dates that are coming up. So applications are open now. The early application deadline is September 30th this year. Our final application deadline is October 27th. The Next 36 will be on the road. Our national campus tour takes place during September and October, and our annual wearable computing hackathon occurs on October 3rd and 4th at Google Canada in Toronto, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later on in the webinar. If we don't get to your questions for whatever reason, our team will follow up after the webinar as well, so please don't worry about that. I know there are a few of you tuning in who are learning about the Next 36 for the first time, so give me 30 seconds for the quick elevator pitch. All of this information is also on our website in more detail. The Next 36 is Canada's national entrepreneurial leadership initiative. Every year we identify a very small number of incredible, high potential students, innovators, leaders, entrepreneurs, and we provide them with the resources that they need to become high impact entrepreneurs. We're a non-profit charity. We're 4 years old, so we like to think of ourselves as a startup still. And we have a short-term goal of creating successful ventures in the technology space, and a long-term goal of creating incredible Canadians that have built and contributed to the success of Canada. The eligibility for the Next 36, we are accepting for our 2015 cohort undergraduate students from across Canada and Canadians that are studying outside of Canada as well. We're looking for students in their last 2 years of an undergraduate program or students that have completed their undergraduate degree in 2014. We are program agnostic. We look for students from any faculty. I think it's one of the strengths of the Next 36. A few other questions that often come up that I'll highlight really quickly. We do accept college students that are part of a 4-year honors or applied degree program. And we accept master's students who are have just graduated from their undergraduate program and gone directly into a master's. The program is designed for Canadians, although we do accept international students who plan on pursuing residency in Canada. And again, if you have information on any of those eligibility criteria, all of the info is on our website. Applications are open now. We'll get into the application process a little bit more as well, but you apply online. There's a 2-stage process. The second stage involves Kira Talent, which is a proud venture that went through the 2012 cohort of the Next 36. And we might hear from some of our alumni about what the Kira Talent interview experience was like a little bit later on. But my goal today is to not be talking a whole lot. I'd rather you hear from the stars of the show, the entrepreneurs who have gone through the Next 36 and can speak to its intensity and rigor and transformational nature. So I'm going to start by asking Tagg to introduce himself and his venture.
Sure. So my name is Tagg. I graduated from UBC in integrated engineering. I had a focus on semiconductor ceramics and mechanical instrumentation. And our venture in X36 was GridCure. So we do data mining for power utilities. You may have heard of a smart meter on an electrical power network, and what these smart meters mean for power utilities is suddenly a 1,000 times increase in the amount of information coming from their electrical grid back to their servers as compared to 5 or 10 years ago. So utilities, they recognize that there's a value in being able to process this information, being able to pull neat little business insights out of it, but they don't have that army of data scientists and army of statisticians to do so. Fortunately, we do, and we build a piece of software that can do that for them. So right now we've got 175,000 meters on a grid down in the US.
I'm Jaclyn. I did a finance degree at McGill University, and I built a company called Blynk. We're your personal fashion styles in your pocket. Users will go through an unlimited feed of fashion photos where we get to know your style and send you outfit recommendations based on that style. You can shop from the app, you can share, you can build outfits, and you can comment and like, and it'd be a fashion community for an app.
Hi, so I'm Chenny. I'm a UX designer from University. And through the Next 36, I built Vokko. Vokko is an anonymous platform that allows employees to be able to share their thoughts, opinions, and concerns to employers, and it gives employers a chance to get a real pulse on the organization.
Hi, I'm Samir from the University of Alberta, a finance grad. I'm co-founder of Senassure, where we're working on sensors for adult diapers to basically track if seniors have soiled themselves and relay that information instantaneously to an app that caretakers can track so they know when to change them. Combating the problem in these nursing home facilities across the globe where caretakers don't actually know when a resident has urinated. So.
Terrific. Thank you all for being here today. We already have a question that is coming in from Andrea F., who is a Laurier student, and we'll give this one to Tagg and Jaclyn. And it's, what part of starting your own business do you think you would have had the most trouble with had you not been part of the Next 36?
Do you mind if I go first?
Yeah, go for it.
So I think the big one is that we're tackling a very large, very risk-averse industry. Power utilities, they aren't, they don't make decisions fast. They got very long sales cycles. So to do that properly as relatively young people, we certainly needed as much support as we could get, be it financial, be it advisors, be it connections into the utility space. And Next 36 was more than capable of sort of supplying that for us when we asked.
For myself, it would be sort of finding the right partner. So I think that when you're thinking of starting a business, you sort of look into your friend group, and I think that could be a difficult thing at some point because you don't know really if you guys can work together in a more professional and intense environment. So for the Next 36, I was able to find my current partner, Shums, who has built this company with me from scratch and from the beginning, and that's sort of something that I think is invaluable that I wouldn't have had without the Next 36.
Okay, terrific. We're getting questions from Andre. What is one thing about each of your applications that you think made you stand out? How do we strengthen our applications if we're applying? And we'll start at the far end, maybe put Samir on the spot.
Put me on the spot. I really think one of the biggest things, for me at least, and candidly we didn't get a lot of feedback on what exactly made our application stand out. But one thing that's really important is to be genuine, and to, the trap that a lot of people fall into is trying to say what you think the other person wants to hear. And I think that the Next 36 does a very good job of cutting through that. So I think it's best to actually be completely genuine. What really makes you stand out? What are the things that you've committed your time to over the past few years, and make that stand out in your application.
Chenny?
So I think it's what makes the Next 36 a really unique group of people is the fact that all of us before the program have done something substantial. So for myself personally, I co-ran a design consultancy in Vancouver, and I think a lot of our experiences with things we've done prior to the program lay a really good foundation for us going in.
Yeah, I would say something similar. So I've always had sort of an interest in fashion, and so sort of my past experiences and sort of the interest that I portrayed in my application was related to that. And so I think they look for people who have, identify sort of the key area that they want to work on and that they want to build a business on.
And these guys have sort of covered the broad strokes. I'd wholeheartedly agree with the genuine aspect. I think that's really important. And I think the one small thing I would add is that really make sure that you underline that uniqueness you have. That one thing that's really going to make people remember you. So at the selection weekend, I was running around talking about how I paid a man to put a magnet in my finger so I could feel electricity, and that was pretty neat. People hadn't heard about that before. It was sort of fun and engaging, and it was a good story.
Perfect.
So that would be my one small addition.
All great advice. Kind of make yourself stand out. A couple pieces that I would add. You can prepare yourself for your application by doing research, not just on the website, and there's a ton of entrepreneur-generated content online. But find out an alumni that went to your university or who has UX experience and you want to talk to, and we're pretty easy to get in touch with. Take those people out for coffee, Skype with them, try to find out what their experiences were like. I'd also encourage you to highlight any subject matter expertise, domain expertise you have. Some of our strongest ventures over the past couple of years involve someone who has experience specifically in the field that they're building the company in. And you can look to previous Next 36 cohorts, Bridget, where there was an engineering student with expertise in the construction field, Seamless, MD, where there's experience in the healthcare space. So it really is important to highlight that expertise, and also that you're ambitious and want to solve big problems. I've got one from Thunderman175 in from the Twitter feed who's asking about high school students, which is a great question. So unfortunately, the program is only for undergraduate university students in their final years of study. We don't have a program for younger students yet, but please stay tuned in case that changes in the future, and also use the time between now and when you apply the Next 36 to take advantage of some of that advice to build up what you'll put on your application, and keep doing what you're doing. So thank you for that question. Another question from Andre, I'll take this one, has to do with the merits of applying early versus later. So we have an early application deadline, which again is September the 30th. The first benefit is that it signals to us that you're keen at the Next 36. We know that you're not waiting until the last second to submit your application. The second benefit is that you have an opportunity to be reviewed by judges before anybody else and receive an invite to our National Selection Weekend. This year, the National Selection Weekend will be in the new year, in January, from January 15th to the 18th. And for those of you that are familiar with the program, that's a bit of a change, where we've had the National Selection Weekend towards the end of November. So an opportunity to get an early invite is benefit number 2. And finally, when you get a finalist invite to National Selection Weekend, you have an opportunity to start ideating and meeting the other finalists, the other keen students who applied early. And it's a great way to get a head start on those who won't get their application in until October 27th. So for those reasons, apply early, but definitely take your time to prepare your answers for the questions. I want to talk about mentorship for a bit. Mentorship is a huge component of the Next 36. We're supported by over 300 of Canada's top business leaders, investors, entrepreneurs, and all of you, I think, have had a strong experience with at least one of your mentors. And so maybe we'll give you each an opportunity to briefly talk about one mentor who's made a difference for your venture this year. We'll start with Tagg.
Sure. So I would highlight Satish Kanwar. He's a director at Shopify. And Satish comes from a design background, UI UX background, and so it's very helpful in components of our business and our venture, basically making it usable. We're data scientists, we're engineers, we're really bad at making things look good. But then more on the technical side, we said, look, we need some help with this particular aspect of Hadoop, this particular aspect of distributed computing. So he said, I know a guy, and he connected us with basically his Shopify internally dedicated his own resources basically to us, to his Hadoop guys. So that was huge.
Myself, so I had a mentor named Charles Benai, and he's a media and tech guy from New York, and that was actually extremely beneficial for us because being in the fashion tech industry, having a presence in New York was really key, so he definitely helped out in that way. And he was phenomenal in terms of always being on the ball. If I didn't hear back from him in like 10 minutes, I thought there was something wrong. So it was a great experience, yeah.
Yeah, so my mentors were Andrea Matheson and Mark Ruddock. In particular, I just wanted to highlight Andrea. She has been there for us every step of the way. I think what's the most compelling about mentorship at the Next 36 is the level of intensity in which they support you. Not only do they draw connections to various industry professionals, but just that one-on-one support that goes on beyond the program itself. You're really developing a true mentor-apprentice sort of relationship for the long run.
Yeah, a number of great points covered. I think the only thing I'd add to that is, so my two mentors were Bram Belsberg and Ling Kunda, and they were they were the most involved mentors that I've ever been privy enough to be with. And they helped me take my game to the next level, and I felt like every mentor meeting I had a bit of a heart attack, but that was because they were pushing you that hard, and they were there for us every step of the way, as some of you guys have mentioned. So I think the biggest thing about mentorship is that we as 20-something-year-olds don't have the experience that some of those mentors do, and they have amazing experiences having built and sold businesses. So to be able to leverage off of that and build some real meaningful relationships like you spoke to, real friendships at the end of the day, that's been really meaningful.
Another great question has come in from Annie via the chat, and Annie wants to know, if you already have a business idea that you've started developing, can you still apply? And I'll answer it in a couple of different ways. So I want to stress that you apply to the Next 36 as an individual, and when you come to National Selection Weekend, you will interview as an individual as well. And you get into the program based on your merits as an individual and your potential to build something big for Canada. Having said that, probably the 4 panelists and most of the people who are chosen as finalists have many ideas before they come to selection weekend, and in some cases they have built existing businesses, they have existing businesses already in place. When you apply, you have an opportunity to identify other co-founders that you might be interested in working with on the application, and in some cases you might have already started to build a business together. The one thing to stress is that the selection committee determines who ultimately makes it into the program, and in some cases you might not be able to work with the co-founders who you applied with, or even on the venture that you're already working on. So please note that. But you do have an opportunity not only to indicate who you might want to work with, but when selected as a finalist, we have what is called discourse, and I kind of explain it to the finalists and potential applicants as kind of like Facebook on steroids for entrepreneurs, where you talk about your background, your passions, the main expertise, business ideas that you have, and then during the discourse build up to selection weekend, you kind of pick apart each other's ideas and rank, and the top ideas move up to the top. And that means that if you're selected into the Next 36, that business idea that you already had, if you can get some, if you can rally some other your co-founders behind it, you can build that business as part of the program. I don't know if any of you have some insights into the discourse experience and ideas that were shared there.
I could talk a little bit to it. So most of us were very proactive on discourse in sort of, you can see sort of profiles, who's who, just by what's written, what's typed, so you can see sort of the video interviews. But I think most of us took the initiative to sort of say, hey, we should hop on Skype. We should have a 20-minute call. And I did that with as many people as I possibly could, and that was really valuable in terms of getting to know who was who.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's more of like a jump start to a relationship. It's not so much you're going to go on discourse and choose your partners right there, but it gives you a good feel of who's out there, who you might want to work with, and who you want to start dialogue with. Perfect.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit and talk about the academic component of the Next 36, because I would say that is one of the other items that differentiates the Next 36 from really any other program that's out there. You have an opportunity to learn from some of the best faculty in North America who teach at Rotman, Ivy, Harvard Business School, MIT, Sauder, kind of the list goes on. And you're in a class with 35 other incredible Next 36ers, as well as our second program, the co-founders of the Next Founders program. And you're learning information that is lessons that are directly applicable to the business that you're building. And so the question, maybe I'll ask Chenny to start. The question will be, what faculty member had a profound impact on you, or what lesson did you learn from a professor this summer?
Yeah, so I think the professor that had the biggest impact was Brendan Kelder from the Getting It Done course. Because there's lots of insights that you can draw from the strategy courses, the finance courses, but at the end of the day, it's really a matter of whether or not you actually get things done.
Perfect. How about you, Jaclyn?
For me, it'd be probably Professor Nanda, so from Harvard Business School. He taught a course on fundraising, and since we are in the process of doing that, it was an immense help to us. So we would learn more things that you can't learn really from school, and so these are more how to negotiate properly and certain little terms that you have to look out for, so that you're not you don't walk into a trap when you're fundraising. So extremely helpful.
Samir?
For me, I'd have to say Reza Satcher is the most impactful professor in this program for me. He is you are always on your toes in his class. You'll never fall asleep. And I mean, he brings to the table a very practical approach to teaching that, you know, through his own life experiences and his own basically cases of building his own businesses, he elucidates, you know, the major lessons learned that we can immediately draw and transfer into our own businesses, which is something that's really special. So.
Perfect. And Tagg?
And I'd say Ajay Agrawal. So he teaches sort of the other half of what I would consider Raisa's class. So he teaches sort of the strategy side, the longer term strategy, the sort of framework. Coming from a technical background, I had none of that training. I had zero. So I was going in there not just learning through a fire hose. But at the same time, it was way outside of the classroom environment. He would also take the time to sit down with you, if you asked, of course. He challenged me at the beginning of the program. He said, look, you know, you got in on a technical expertise. Like, that was basically why you're here. Now prove to us that you can actually run a business. And I hopefully sort of tried to.
That sounds like Ajay. I would be remiss if I didn't highlight that both Reza Sachu and Ajay Agarwal are co-founders of the Next 36. Reza is a serial entrepreneur and is our founding chair, and Ajay is also our academic director, and he's the Peter Monk Professor of Entrepreneurship at the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. Big mouthful, but I think I got it right. We have another question that has come in, I think, from Samuel. Samuel's a 2011 grad. I graduated a few years ago. Can I still apply? So the answer is no. Unfortunately, you're not eligible to this program. Although if you have an existing venture, I would encourage you to take a look at the Next Founders. The Next Founders, for anybody watching who has a business probably in the tech space, but it doesn't need to be, with some early traction and some real growth opportunity, you have an opportunity to participate in all of the classes that the Next 36 went through this summer, as well as access to the incredible network of investors and business leaders. Applications for that program, though, won't open up until the new year, but I encourage you to take a look at that as well. Most of the graduates, most of the participants, of the Next Founders program have a STEM background, or they are really benefiting from the business acumen that they get through the program. Events. The Next 36 network is very robust, and you have an opportunity to meet with so many different investors, mentors, advisors, business leaders. Maybe I can ask a few of you to talk about your favorite event from the Entrepreneurship Institute this summer and what it was like. And I'll start with Chenny again.
Sure. So one of my favorite events was the Women's Leadership event. We collected in Toronto with some of the highest impact female leaders in Canada, and we were able to have dinner and talk with them on a one-on-one basis, and also build relationships going forward. But what was really important was to hear their stories and what sort of challenges that they had gone through. So hopefully we can avoid some of those mistakes going forward.
Great answer. How about you, Tagg?
I think, at risk of sort of sounding a little bit strange about it, there was an opportunity to go to New York. Some groups were selected to go down to New York, and we were offered basically the opportunity to sit down in front of real venture capitalists. So these were guys who've been in the space for a very long time. They've seen thousands and thousands and thousands of pitches. And we were able to sort of sit down, give them our pitch, and sort of get to hear their feedback. So it was, out of the frying pan, into the fire. Here's what it's really like.
Excellent. Jaclyn?
For me, it'd probably be the Google Venture Night a couple months ago. And so there we got some of the people in the cohort got a chance to pitch. And we had investors there, as well as alumni and mentors, and everyone got some investor chips. And it was really fun because everybody could go around after the booth and vote for sort of who they would fake invest for. And for us, that was a really great experience because we actually came up on top of that, and it gave us a really great motivation, encouragement for the final pitch yesterday or two days ago. Yeah.
By a pretty solid margin, right?
A solid margin. It was good.
Yeah.
He seemed like because he came in second.
Yeah. And Blynk also had some success in Montreal at the. Maybe you want to talk about that.
We also had a chance to pitch at the Startup Festival weekend in Montreal, and that was, I think, maybe in the mid-July. And so that was kind of out on the whim, but we actually came up on top as well there and won $100,000 in investments there. So a great experience again. That we couldn't have really done without the Next 36.
Congratulations again. I'm going to put Samir on the spot now.
Oh, no.
This year we accepted a lot of students that I would say had not a lot of applicants, but some applicants who had a higher risk profile, students who had experience in investment banking or had worked with a large tech company and had options in September when they were done. And we did that for a few reasons. But I'm wondering if you can talk to people like you that are out there that might have had some of those experiences through an internship or might have something that they're looking forward to a year down the road.
For sure.
What advice you would give?
Sure. So I'll specifically speak to business students who are looking to pursue the traditional routes of investment banking, management consulting, or accounting. I summered last year in investment banking, and I just have to tell you that, you know, the traditional paths of success that are, you know, aspired to in these business schools aren't what will fulfill you necessarily, okay? I think for the vast majority of us, actually trying to build something and create something of real value, which is what I've experienced just over the past 9 months, even as part of the Next 36, is really what will make you live a fulfilling and happy life at the end of the day. And it's not about the secure, stable, you know, this is what'll pay me X amount of dollars per year. That gets old very, very quickly. For me, quicker than others perhaps. It just took a summer, but I have to say that the Next 36 for me was transformational in the sense that it taught me that you can start something now. It doesn't necessarily require domain expertise. It doesn't necessarily require any hard technical skills. You can really try to make an impact now. So I would say, you know, for those of you who are investment banking, there are a lot of skill sets that are transferable to entrepreneurship, i.e. working very, very hard. And try to leverage those in a way that you can actually make a real impact in society.
I like it. Excellent response. Tagg, do you want to take the stab at that question from a different angle?
Yeah. So you were speaking to like the domain expertise point in particular,
and having options post program, and how you chose the Next 36 versus some of those other options that you might have had.
So those are sort of rolled into one for me. I do come from a domain expertise. I had an offer on the table to go back to making Gorilla Glass. The thing that's on the front of your cell phone. I had an offer to go back. It was a good offer. I had an opportunity to go and work in a couple of other places with asteroid mining companies. I'm like, that's pretty cool, right? But at the same time, I was really interested in this entrepreneurship thing. I was like, geez, I really want to carve my own path here. I think that these are good opportunities. They're exciting. They're stable. But this opportunity to really sort of jumpstart my career by myself on my own, sort of dime, on my own sort of skill set, it was too good an opportunity to pass up.
I'm going to give Chenny a chance to talk about design or creative students, because I would say that is one segment of the applicant pool that has been underrepresented in the past few years. So what would you say to your peers with UX, design, creative passions?
Yeah, so all the artists and designers. You know what, there's a lot more than just agencies. At an agency, you don't get me wrong, like we've got some amazing agencies, even here in Toronto, like T-Hen and Lax, right? But you are a cog of a giant machine in a sense. And, it's great. Personally, like I said, I ran my own for a number of years, and it's fun. But at a certain point, you get really tired of jumping between multiple projects and designing for a number of different products without ever being able to call one of them your own. And I think as designers, it's really, really important for you to want to pursue entrepreneurship, because essentially as a designer compared to a business student or an engineering student, you are the closest person to the consumer. And so there's no one else who wants to represent the consumer more than you do. And I think that's why they should apply for Next 36.
Yeah. We're hoping to see more entrepreneurs like you in this year's cohort. We've got a good question from, I think it's Miriam. My apologies if I have the wrong name. Miriam wants to know if you need to have an existing successful business to be competitive, and I'm going to assume that you're speaking with regards to the application process. Do you need to have an existing successful business? The answer is definitely not. You don't need to have an existing successful business. If you have a business or have experience building a startup, definitely highlight that on your application. It will help out, but it is not a requirement. If you have started a business and failed, the most important piece of advice I can give you is to highlight what lessons you learned from that failure. That is just as impactful as having a successful business. But if you are someone who aspires to be like the 4 alumni here, and you haven't built anything from a business perspective, look at other ways that you can demonstrate you're entrepreneurial. That could mean you've started a club on campus, or done something in your community, or worked with a social enterprise, or worked for a startup, or done a co-op or an internship where you were entrepreneurial. Any place where you identified an opportunity or a problem and came up with a creative way to solve it, these are the things that you want to highlight on your application. Thunderman, another good question from Thunderman. Where did you get the inspiration for your business? And I'm gonna ask Samir, because you might not expect him to come up with the business that he's in, and then I will also ask. We'll ask Chenny and Jack. Actually, we'll ask Jaclyn and Samir this one. Thank you.
All right. Well, look, like initially the team was interested in technology that tracked bioinformation and relayed that to the user or caretaker. And we went down every vertical you can think of, whether it be seniors, newborns, the blind, the deaf, what have you. And I mean, from an initial lit search, saw that at a high level of senior spaces, there's a huge amount of need emerging. I mean, 1 in every 4 Canadians is going to be senior in 20 years. And then from there, you got into the room with a bunch of caretakers and talked to actual users of potential products and asked them where their biggest pain points were. And so I think the process, when you actually got in the room with the potential customers and potential users, and we're actually immersed in the environment where in these long-term care facilities where you see firsthand how residents are being, I won't say being treated, but how their day-to-day lives are right now. You see there's a huge amount of possibility to make a difference. And so I guess it wasn't that I came into the program and had this inspiration pre-crafted. It was a very iterative process from starting at the top, going down and talking to people, and then getting my energy from them, really.
So likewise, I would say that it's not like it came in with an idea for the program. Like I mentioned, I have my partner who's an engineering student from University of Toronto. And so when we were sort of hashing out ideas, we were thinking, maybe healthcare, maybe education, but not really so much the fashion space, just because his background was in engineering and he didn't really see the value in that. So what happened was I took him shopping. And then we sort of like put together outfits for him. And for the next 7 days, he went to school in all these new outfits, and every single day he would text me and say, "Oh my God, I got so many compliments today, and I had never gotten compliments on the way I looked before." And so quickly he saw the value in sort of dressing better and sort of that fashionable side. And so together we thought, how can we replicate that service of somebody who wants fashion help and somebody who liked giving fashion advice, and then we thought, how can we make a combination of technology and fashion and build a personal fashion styles. Yeah.
Beautiful. Got a good question from Jack on the chat. Good question, Jack. Hi, Next 36. What happens if your venture fails or is failing during the program? And I would say those of you that are familiar with the Next 36 from its first couple of years, our response over the last few years is much different. This year we were a lot more open to movement between the ventures if either an idea or a business changed or pivoted, or the co-founders got to a point where they felt that they were no longer able to work together. I would say one of the challenges that came out of it is that if you decided that you didn't want to continue working with the co-founders you were with, or if your business changed its focus, you were now in a position where you had to either sell yourself and your merits to the co-founders of other businesses, or rally around you and your vision and your company some of the co-founders that were in place. And as a result of it, I'd say that there were a number of entrepreneurs that didn't complete the program this year because they were unable to do so. So it was a challenge in that area, but I think when we spoke with mentors and our alumni and entrepreneurs, that this approach is a lot more like the way the real world works. the learnings were a lot richer, and at the end of the day, we might have had fewer, stronger teams because of it. And I'm looking at Samir and Jaclyn because you both, Samir experienced both losing, but also bringing people onto the team, and Jaclyn as well. So maybe a good way to respond to that is to talk about what you were looking for when you brought people onto Senassure and Blynk. Samir, if you want to start?
Yeah, for sure. So I just to preface this, I went through, I think, 4 co-founders in and out, and now I've settled upon finally a team with two co-founders, one of which who isn't actually a part of the Next 36, so that's an interesting insight as well. I'd say the process of going through all this turmoil and change has led to a lot of personal growth on my part, but also clarified what it is that I need to look for in co-founders and how to make a successful team work. And so I'd say that the top things that I look for now are, number one, do our values align? That's key. It has to happen, otherwise you're dead in the water. After your values aligning is, do you have passion and commitment and perseverance towards the cause that you're currently working towards? That's hugely important, because there's a lot of tough times. And then the last part is complementary skill set. So that would be the order in which I look at it as well. So values, and then a complementary skill set falls at the bottom. So.
Yeah, I would agree exactly with that, the values and sort of the complementary skill sets. Sort of what happened to us was we came in with a team of 3, and we worked really well together, and we all were friends, but I think that could be masked sometimes, and you might get confused in thinking just because you guys are friends that you guys work really well together. And so I think it's key to understand really what drives you, and I think that's one thing to add upon that the team has alignment in terms of what drives you, what makes you want to get up in the morning and run your business. That alongside with trust, and I think that that develops over time, but do you trust your partners to do the right thing, to make the right decision, that they're doing everything that they can to build the business the best it can be? So it's those are the couple of things I'd add to what I look for in the right partner.
Thank you both for candid and honest, genuine responses. Another great question that has come in has to do with whether you need to have a technical background or a financial background to excel in the Next 36. And the answer is no. Again, we're looking for young entrepreneurs that want to build something big, that have a track record in identifying problems and opportunities and attacking them, and they want to be pushed out of their comfort zone. We focus in the Next 36 on technology businesses, not because we expect all of the students who apply to come from an engineering or computer science background. Some of the reasons why we focus on technology are because we've got a limited amount of time for the program, and you have a limited number of resources, including financial resources, and it allows you to build something and get a minimum viable product and some feedback from the market in a relatively short amount of time. It's also a sector, an area where most of the applicants are somewhat familiar in, but we're not a technology accelerator. We are looking for students from all faculties. And maybe all 4 of you have some insights on this, but do you need to have a technology or a finance background to excel in the Next 36? And what were some of your personal experiences? You want to start us, Tagg?
Sure. I mean, we were a team of engineers, but we rapidly discovered that, gosh, we are missing a lot on this team. So we very quickly went and we needed a designer. There was a dearth of designers this year. We needed things to make stuff look pretty and actually be usable, honestly. We came in and we very quickly recognized that, yes, we have a strong technical skill set here, but gosh, we were missing a lot. So I would say no, that the broader the background, the better.
Yeah, I agree. I had no experience in tech. I came from a finance degree, but because our company is mainly focused on tech, it's not something that I felt like really was detrimental at all to our business. It was actually because it's a new thing and that I really wanted to learn about it. It kind of pushed ourselves further on that. And I think to add on to that, having a diverse group of people in the Next 36 with all these different expertise and interests was a great way for us to learn as well. So exactly, Chenny coming from a design background, if I had a question on design, I would go to her. Or engineering background, we would talk to other engineers within the program. So having a diverse set of people in the program is valuable for sure.
Yeah, so our team was lucky enough to have, one designer, one developer, one business guy. But I would add that, even though we had on paper a diverse skill set, your expectation for those skill sets change as your venture develops, and you soon realize that even though you think you're a hot engineer, that you no longer you actually don't have enough skills. And I think one of the lessons learned through Next 36 that's really valuable is how do you bring on people who are industry specialists, who are normally a lot older than you and who come from crazy backgrounds, and how do you convince them to help you? I think the Next 36 does a really good job of that.
So the only thing I'm going to add to everything everybody else has said is that I personally view perseverance and commitment to be far more important than any skill set that you can bring to the table, because let's be honest, at the end of the day, we're 20-something-year-olds. We may have had a couple of years of experience in some degree, but we really don't have any real experience at the end of the day. So the thing that makes you succeed and be an entrepreneur is if you are able to handle the tough times and really grind down hard. And this, just to be clear, this program is it is the most intense thing I've ever been through in my life, and I think all of us would agree on that. And what I'd love to see in future cohorts is that continuation of intensity, and even more intensity in the sense of the people who come on board. I'd love to see people who have that perseverance and commitment. Those are the two biggest things, I think.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Greg to Differ has a question through Twitter. Wants to know if the Next 36 is open to students in a master's program. Unfortunately, unless you have completed an undergraduate in spring or summer 2014, an undergraduate degree, and gone right into your master's, that is the only way that you would be eligible for the program. It's not currently designed for master's students, I'm sorry. Part of the logic is just to focus on younger students where we think we can have the most impact at the most critical point in your careers. So no program currently, but again, if you are a master's student with a venture, please take a look at the Next Founders program. And another question that came in from Rahul, who it sounds like is a third-year student and trying to figure out whether he's going to apply in year 3 or year 4. And Jaclyn, I think your co-founder is in third year.
He's in third year.
So maybe you want to talk a little bit about Shams.
Yeah, no, he's a third-year engineering science student at University of Toronto, and I would say if he didn't apply, I wouldn't be here right now. So definitely apply, even if you're in your third year. I think that even if you don't get through for this round, it'll give you a great experience if you want to apply again for a fourth round for when you're in fourth year. But I think even being a third year and still having to go back to school, the experience you're going to get from the Next 36, both from an academic perspective as well as just applying business skills, is going to be give you a huge upper hand to the class when you go back to school eventually. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and just to add to that, at the end of the day, it's a decision that the individual applicant has to make. There is no doubt that if you are in fourth year or you have graduated, you're in a nicer position to continue with a venture if you have success and get some early traction, and you're not put in that kind of position or predicament where you have to make a tough decision. But having said that, if you think you're ready for this and you're willing to take on the challenge, apply in third year with the knowledge that you'll gain insights into the application process that might help you the following year if you're not successful. One of the things that I heard a few minutes ago had to do with sharing and talking to Chenny if you need design advice, and a lot of people who aren't familiar with the program think it's really cutthroat and competitive within the 36 students that are in the Next 36. Is it that competitive? What kind of sharing takes place? Who is willing to take on that one?
I can take on that question.
Yeah.
So I think that yes, of course, there's a degree of competition, right? Like anything, and that is a direct reflection of the real world. But I think it would be a mistake to really only fight for that internal spot, or to try to be the poster child for that year. There's so much competition in the outside world that really for you to look at the competition internally as like this big thing is just you only have so much time in your day, and it's there's enough stuff out there to worry about. That's for sure. Yeah.
Anybody else? I'd like to add to that.
If I could add one small thing that sort of talking to the rest of the cohort now that things are sort of over for this year in terms of the formal program, the biggest thing that people say is that, gosh, we hung out a fair bit. We talked a fair bit. We shared ideas. We shared concepts. We shared technical practices. You know,
Shared beds.
we,
New York.
in New York, yeah, we were in you know, a lot of us in a small
Bootstrapping,
apartment.
okay.
It's bootstrapping, yeah. But we wish we'd done more. So as sort of close and as tied together as we were, we wish we could have done more. So I would say that is the direct opposite of competition. That we want to do more. We want to do more together.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, we talk a lot about some of the big benefits of the Next 36, and we talk about mentorship and education and access to up to $65,000 in capital to launch your business. We talk about the in-kind resources you get from some of our incredible national partners and donors, and national partners of the Next 36 include Ernst & Young and Rogers and TD, and I don't want to miss anybody, and Mars and Osler.
Yeah, you're on this.
Well done, well done.
Thank you. As well as technical partners. I can do those too. Rackspace provides cloud hosting if you need it, Amazon Web Services, and Crashlytics. And then again, hundreds of other donors, entrepreneurs, business leaders that are giving time and treasure. But one of the other huge benefits is that you are now part of this incredible network of the future of Canada, the future of the planet, business leaders and successful entrepreneurs that are going to be creating impact, and that you can call on for that advice for years to come. So I think that's really important to highlight. I'm going to pick off a couple of quick ones really fast. I think it was from Jansen, wants to know about students who are doing a second degree, but it's an undergraduate. Are you able to apply to the Next 36 if you're doing a second undergraduate degree? The answer is yes, but you still have to be in your final 2 years of study or have just graduated from that program. Mike has a good question just about venture traction and success. Wants to know about are any of the ventures generating revenue, users, clients, customers? Maybe talk a little bit about the success that each of your businesses have had to date. We can start with Samir and kind of go down the line.
Sure. So Senassure, we're in the healthcare space, so things move a little bit slower on our side of things. I mean, in terms of traction, definitively that investors have been impressed with. We've got a number of different partner facilities who've signed LOIs and whatnot with us to test and pay, if successful, for our product when ready. Now, I mean, and yeah, so from a customer perspective, we've been really focused upon iterating upon the product by putting it in the hands of users, as well as, you know, at that higher level, generating some partnerships ahead of time so that when the product is ready to be in the hands of patients, that's all set up.
Yeah, so I just have one quick point that I think relates to both of ours ventures before talking about Vokko, is that, you know, if you have a particular idea that you really, really want to pursue, before you even know whether or not you're part of the program, go and see if that's a viable option, because otherwise you will spend, you know, easily half of your time during the Next 36 trying to figure that out. So, you know, the earlier you do that, the better it will be. For Vokko, similar to healthcare, HR is also a very slow-moving space. We're currently in conversations with MasterCard about implementing a 2,000-person pilot in St. Louis.
For us, we're a consumer app, so we were able to get early traction. We launched about 6 weeks ago. We have about 8,000 users on our platform, and we are generating cash, and we do have retailer relationships, and so we create money through affiliate commissions, and it was great sort of encouragement from early on, because having to get that, having the user base to bring to retailers while still in the program was great to get us going.
And from our side, we work with power utilities. We had a signed pilot with 175,000 smart meters. You guys have heard this. And we were moving I'll
do your pitch for you.
You can probably do it at this point. Yeah, we can probably do each other's.
Yeah.
We're moving just under a terabyte of data a month, just in terms of volume of information coming off that grid. We are continuing on with this current partner. We're in the process of getting a couple of formal RFPs issued so we can jump on board in a more formal fashion. And we've been invited to a second city in sort of the southeast United States to come and install our product there. And actually this morning we got a very interesting introduction to a West Coast utility. So we're crossing our fingers on that one.
Fantastic. Congratulations. And again, it's a tough question because 3 of the 4 businesses that are here have much longer sales cycles. And also none of these companies existed about 8 months ago. So please keep that in mind as well. Andre, and I hope Andre applies to the program. He keeps coming up with great questions. The toughest decision that you had to make as part of the program. You can only pick one. That was the toughest decision. Who wants to start us off?
I'll start.
Yeah.
I would say, as we talked earlier about sort of partnerships and team, we started with a team of 3 in the beginning, and I think a key decision that we had to make was whether or not we would move on as a partnership or as a team of 3. And if we didn't make that really tough decision, when we did, we definitely wouldn't be where we are today. So I could say for sure that making sort of those people decisions is probably the most difficult, but once we sort of made that decision and we continued on as a partnership, we accelerated much, much faster.
I could sort of speak to a decision we had to make, again, very early on with GridCure, was around this pilot we had over the summer. So it was strongly encouraged by this utility partner that we spend as much of the time, boots on the ground, in their facilities as possible. Of course, we can't really do that at Next 36, right? We got the academic component, we've got getting to know the rest of the cohort, we've got 10 million things to do here in Toronto. So very early on, we had to have very deep conversations to basically understand how do we sort of take advantage of the Next 36 program, because that does take priority, but also, actually try to fulfill what this partner, this first and very important partner, wants. So that was a very difficult decision. It took us about 2 months to work out all the details.
Who's next?
Okay, I can go. I'd say I have to echo Jaclyn's sentiments because I've had experience with 4 different co-founders leaving me. It must be because I smell or something.
You're good.
Hopefully not
You're
today,
good.
Chenny. Okay, good. I think that the toughest decision was actually just very recently, the past couple weeks, where we had to decide about one person, whether or not it made sense for them to stay on past the program or not. And I mean, we all are friends at the end of the day, so it's the toughest thing when you have to tell someone that, that there's not going to be a place for them as a co-founder post-program. It's a tough decision, and it's a tough thing to also communicate and maintain the relationship as a friend after the fact. So.
Yeah, so I think post-program, there's definitely a lot of challenges, but I'm trying to think of something unique. So I would say, early on, we shifted ideas. You don't want to churn through ideas like crazy, but at the same time, if you have enough proof for your team to essentially say, hey, this is not what we want to pursue, it's really, really important to just move on and to not look back. Yeah.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come back to Chenny with a tough one.
Okay, great.
There's a lot of talk in the media, in the startup world, about how there are not enough women in the tech sector pursuing entrepreneurship. What would you say to the women that are watching this webinar right now and thinking about applying to the Next 36?
Yeah, gosh, that is a really tough question. So I would say that, if you look statistically, there's definitely an underrepresentation of women in businesses, through leadership or management or what have you. And I think that, as women, we bring a unique ability to be able to draw teams together, unlike men do. Don't get me wrong, you guys do a good job. But
shots fired.
but we do it in a different way, right? So I think that through all of our ventures, that having some sort of leadership in the form, some sort of leadership from a woman has been really positive for all of our ventures.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. And I would say, we look at the data, and I can tell you that through the first 3 cohorts, most of the teams that have raised funding had at least one female co-founder on them. So there might be some merit to that. Thank you for tackling a tough question. We're getting people asking about what is next for your ventures. So maybe you can answer what the next 6 months looks like for your companies.
Ooh, well, the next 2 weeks are tricky enough. But 6 months from now, we are fundraising. We do have a couple of people that we want to hire. We have a couple of positions we need to fill. We're going to be a very distributed team, which is going to be sort of interesting. So we have people in Vancouver, we have people in Toronto, we have people in the States. So that's what the next 6 months are going to be. The next 6 months are going to be grow a team in a very distributed fashion while hopefully bringing in some money.
Yeah, I'd pretty much say the same thing. So fundraising, continuing around, advisory, so looking for the perfect advisor board for our company going forward, building our team. So we're hiring, we've been looking for the past couple months for to fill specific positions, and then location, just deciding is Toronto the market, is New York the market, and sort of deciding where we want to head out next. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much the exact same thing as you guys. It's the only thing I would say on top of that is also, as we have limited resources, there's lots of different options that all our ventures have, and trying to figure out which one is the best one to pursue.
Yeah, I mean, so on the capital side, we're trying to close the round quicker than as quickly as possible. And over the next 6 months, we're running a series of pilots to both iterate upon the product as well as have measurable outcomes. Upon which point we'd have to raise a Series A to bring the product actually to market. So that would be the next 6 months.
And if anyone is curious about learning more about these ventures, the other ventures in the 2014 cohort, or the other businesses that have been built since the program started, they are all listed on our website. So please check that out as well. www.apply.thenext36.ca. Get that plug in there. We're starting to run out of time. Applications are open now. The first stage of the application process, you register, you create a profile, you answer 3 short answer questions that really give you an opportunity to highlight anything entrepreneurial you've done, why you deserve to be in the program, and then for those applicants that are technical and want to be the technical co-founder of their business, there is a programming challenge that they will have the pleasure of completing. And then there's this second stage, the Kira interview, where you will be, it's exciting, but it's also very tense and nerve-wracking for most applicants as well. You will be asked a series of questions via video. You will have, let's say, 30 seconds to think about your answer, and then your webcam turns on, and you've got 45 seconds to answer that question, which is recorded and sent back to the next 36. So I just want everybody to know what the application process looks like. For those who I haven't scared off by talking about Kira, what one piece of advice would you give to someone who's thinking about applying? What piece of advice? It doesn't necessarily need to be how do they strengthen their application, but what will they really get out of this program? Who should apply?
I think that the biggest thing to go for would be really show how you're unique. There's a lot of very smart people in this program. There's a lot of very smart people in Canada who can apply. But really sort of try to figure out why you in particular belong here, why you in particular are the person who should be in the room.
Yeah, I would say the advice I would give is you might be scared to apply. Maybe you feel like you don't have the grades to apply, you don't have the experience, you haven't started a business before, but honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't come down to who's the smartest person, in the program. It comes down to drive, ambition, and persistence. So if you have those qualities, highlight that and you'll do just fine.
Yeah, I think commitment is the biggest value you can bring to the table. Skills are great, but you're in Next 36 because you want to learn new skills, not necessarily just because you want to ride off your existing skills. And also just honesty more than anything else. Really speak true to what you really are truly passionate about, and don't get bullied into pretending to be passionate about something else.
Yeah, 2 things: commitment and perseverance. That's all that matters. And frankly, if you are planning on, you're planning on applying, you're really smart, but you're planning on just adding this to your resume or just coasting, I'd encourage you not to apply. As crude as that sounds, don't apply. You're gonna have a miserable experience. You're gonna ruin your reputation because you won't be able to handle it. This is an intense experience, but it's a life-changing one if you actually take it by the horns and make something of it. It's changed my life, and so that's why I can speak so bluntly with you. But I would encourage you to really think hard about whether this is something you are willing to devote at least 9 months to very intensely. Your whole life is taken up by this. So, but it's an amazing experience, transformational.
please take what Samir says to heart. Thank you. Thank you. I want to thank Tagg, Jaclyn, Chenny, and Samir for speaking on this webinar during what has been a very busy week for all of them as founders of businesses. And just to wrap things up, next steps for those of you at home who are watching. As I mentioned, applications are open now. We have a national campus tour where members of the team and our alumni will be traveling across the country to visit as many universities as we can before the October 27th deadline. My apologies if we can't get to your school. We try to get to as many as we can. On October 3rd and 4th, we have our Wearable Technology Hackathon, which is a really cool event. So again, it's in Toronto at Google. Registrations are open now on our website. We have 4 incredible device partners who are on board. Thalmic Labs, who make the Mayo, Bionim, who make the Nimi, Kiwi Wearables, and Interaxon, who make the Muse, are all on board. So you will get to build software for hardware. And for those of you that are interested in technology, one of the big shifts over the last couple of years is that you no longer need to just build software or an app as part of the Next 36. You have an opportunity to build hardware or machine to machine. So there's a lot more options than there were back in 2011 and 2012. If you have questions that weren't answered today that you've asked, we will get to them, I promise. Keep the questions coming. You can email us, info@thenext36.ca. Keep sending them through Twitter. We're happy to respond. And we hope to see you at either one of the events in the fall, or even better, at our National Selection Weekend in January. So until then, we say farewell and thank you for watching.